Welcome back, everybody. We're now in our second part of the 4-part series, and today's class we're going to be learning about dips, salad dressings, pestos, hummus, everything that makes food just explode and create an incredible flavor sensation for ourselves and for our friends and family. So we're going to start with my fail-proof French dressing. It is 100% winner no matter when you need it. I make one jam jar full of this and I keep it in the fridge literally all the time, and it's so easy to top up. So what we're going to start with is, we don't need any fancy equipment whatsoever, we just need a jam jar. And we have 100 mils of extra virgin cold pressed olive oil. And then to that, we're going to add the same amount of apple cider vinegar. Now, I love to use the Bragg's apple cider vinegar. It's raw, it's unpasteurized, and it's with the mother. So that's the brand I like to use, and if I'm using that, I know for a fact that 100 ml is the perfect amount of acidity that we're looking for. If you're using another brand of apple cider vinegar, I would possibly recommend try it with 80 ml first, make the dressing, finish it off, and then taste it. And if you feel it needs a little bit more acidity, then you can add more. I don't recommend adding 100 ml of another one until you actually are familiar with the brand. So with the Bragg's, I know exactly what I'm getting every time, and as a result then I'm able to measure out precisely what's needed. So we add in 100 ml of that. Then we have some honey, local raw honey if you can, and some mustard, and we're using Dijon mustard. So we have 1 teaspoon of Dijon and 1 teaspoon of honey. Again, I've just mixed the two of them there together in that. Then we have 2 tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. I'm just going to squeeze, so that's equivalent to about half a lemon. Yeah, perfect. And then we have our garlic. Now, for people who are, let's say, used to working with garlic and used to using it in all their recipes, a lot of people chop off the ends here and the top and tail at first. The best way to start with using garlic in a recipe to allow its its beautiful pungency and the oils and its beneficial properties to really do their work is smash it with the back of the knife first. And whenever I'm preparing or I'm cooking dinner or lunch, I always like to smash a couple of cloves of garlic just at the very beginning of my preparations, so that you then just leave it aside. And then it'll do its work, and then when you're ready, then it's excellent for you to be able to use. Now, I already smashed a couple of these anyway, so I'm going to show you one. Then it comes away really easily from the skin. You're not having to peel it back and spend time doing that. Then if you wish, you can tail off the last bit at the very end. It's not really necessary unless it's got some marks on it. And then you're just going to chop it roughly first. And then I like to turn the side of the knife so that it's on the flat, and then you're going to really pummel it down, and basically you're trying to mince it. You don't want to have any chunks of fresh garlic in this dressing. You want to have it as fine as possible, and really to allow the most amount of flavor to be emitted. You want to keep it as fine as you can. Just keep scraping it until it's almost like a paste. And I do this for every time I work with garlic, unless it requires me to do it otherwise. So then you've got it into a nice paste. And then just make sure that you haven't missed any few pieces there that might have escaped you. Okay. And pop that in. And make sure you get it all. Excellent. Then we have Himalayan rock salt. And we're going to put in about a half a teaspoon of the Himalayan rock salt there, and some black pepper. Again, easy. Just pop it in on top. and blend. Now, you can see that that makes approximately half a jar. The jar is 330 ml, your average size jam jar or honey jar. So you can double up this recipe and make it in a batch and keep it in the fridge, and it will last for a week. And this is wonderful to have on hand all the time, so you're not having to make a new dressing every single time. I love to use this just in a very simple salad with some lovely fresh leaves, some sliced cucumber, maybe some scallions or spring onions, a couple of capers, and some lovely toasted nuts and seeds. It's a winner. So enjoy. Everybody loves hummus. I truly don't know many people that have not fallen in love with it. I've spent a lot of time in the Middle East, and it is a creamy, whipped dish of heaven. And how they get it so smooth, oh, those secrets still escapes me. I've been told a couple of tricks over the time. When you're cooking your chickpeas, put in some baking soda, it makes them creamier. I have been told put in a lot more water, use more runny tahini. So I believe I have found the secret to the most flavoursome hummus, and there are two reasons why for me. One, I don't use chickpeas. Shock, horror, I know. I use butter beans. I find they give a much creamier consistency and texture, and also personally I find them much easier to digest. So I love to use the butter beans. And secondly, this is thanks to the Culture Kitchen in Ireland, in Belfast, and Deborah Reynolds, and she really introduced me to a whole other world of fermented foods about a year and a half ago. And since then, I am just fermenting like crazy. I have so many jars and containers in my kitchen that are constantly hissing and popping because they need to be burnt. Well, more about that in episode 4. But what we're going to use today is we're going to use actually the preserved lemons in the hummus in place of lemon juice. Now, if you haven't got preserved lemons, that's fine. You can also use the lemon juice. So this would essentially be like a preserved lemon butterbean hummus. So we're going to start with the butter beans, and really I love to, if it's possible and time permits, which it does these days, is to buy the butter beans in their dry state, to soak them and then to cook them myself. But if that's not possible, we're looking for an easier hack, then just get a nice 400 gram tin of butter beans. Always reserve a few to the side because you're going to use them for the decoration afterwards on the top. So we're going to strain them, rinse them. I like to take the brine off it personally. Rinse them and then pop them in the food processor. Then you are going to add 80 mils of extra virgin cold pressed olive oil. Then you're going to have 50 mils of, well, if you want to, you can if you like to use the brine, you can. I don't personally, so I just use a little bit of water. So 50 mils of water. Just reserving a little bit in case I need more. Then you're going to have half a teaspoon of cumin. It's a bit of a secret ingredient. And then 1 teaspoon of ground Himalayan rock salt. Tahini, like I said in our breakfast episode yesterday, it is my love affair. It is creamy. I think this is one of the reasons why it's so incredibly delicious. So we're going to add 50 mils of tahini. And I'm going to show you with the preserved lemon now. Now this is one I've made earlier. So I made these on the 23rd of March. So they're almost a month old. And you leave them for 4 weeks. And I'm actually going to be in our 4th and final series. I'll be talking about a lot about preserved foods and fermented foods, and I'm going to be showing you how to make your own preserved lemons at home. Hugely popular in Moroccan cuisine. So I just take off a little bit of the pith and then chop away at the rind, pop that in, and then we have 2 cloves of garlic And like as I said earlier, we're going to smash these at the very beginning of the recipe when you're preparing to allow the natural oils to come out, and again, roughly chop. Yeah. And I would still give this a bit of a mince, you know, because as fine as your food processor or your blender might be, not too nice having a big lump of garlic. So you're going to mash this down, like as I was saying earlier, with the back of your knife, just to the side there so you can see. And then you can finely chop any little bits that have escaped the mashing. You pop that in. You might think, wow, 2 cloves. Yeah, there's a lot of flavor going on here. And then finally, some black pepper. I like lots of black pepper. And hit blend. Sorry for the sound. My partner said I should have told everybody about the sound beforehand. In a food processor just as easily. Now this is actually a really lovely consistency and texture. I'm going to give it possibly another drop of water. Some people like their hummus to be really thick and quite lumpy, but I much prefer to have a slightly runnier consistency. When you really wish you had a soundtrack over the recording. Okay, actually I'm going to use a slightly smaller bowl. Now, because this is a preserved lemon and Butterbean hummus, Deborah of the Culture Kitchen actually, in her recipe, it's slightly different to mine, I've adapted it, she recommends to leave this for 2 days on a countertop and not to keep it in the fridge. So I've done that a couple of times, and I have to say the flavor, the difference is absolutely delicious. It's a lot more intense, and my gut just feels so good after eating this. Unlike when I cook with chickpeas, or when I make this with chickpeas, it's a completely different experience. Just doesn't agree with me, and you don't get the same creaminess or that kind of cloying taste that you often get with hummus, and I think that's what can put some people off making it. So I really encourage you to try this one at home. So I'm not going to take all that out because it's quite noisy taking it all out, but you can see that it is just a little bit thicker than, like, it's a nice Greek yogurt consistency almost. So what I would do with that now is make it look really beautiful. I'd make a little well in the center. I'm going to pop a few of the butter beans in the center of that. And then we take a little bit of paprika. I'm not a massive fan of smoked paprika, so I just use regular paprika. And then the little faintest drizzle of olive oil that you might have left. Et voila, there you go. I hope you try it at home. I adore pesto, and I don't think I'm alone in that. A lot of people like their pesto made with pine nuts and with some of the Parmesan cheese, and possibly some even use garlic. I don't use any of those ingredients. I like to use the soaked almonds that we would have soaked when I taught you about that in episode 1. We soak the almonds for 8 to 12 hours, then strain them to remove any of the phytic acids or the digestive enzyme inhibitors, and until the water runs clear. I use the soaked almonds, and I don't use garlic. I find there's enough flavour in the basil, and with the lemon you really want to have a nice matching of the profile there in the flavour, and sometimes garlic can overpower it. I don't use cheese either. A lot of people use the Parmesan cheese. If you're making the pesto as a vegan option, which is what this one is today, you can use nutritional yeast flakes, which give that kind of cheesy Parmesan flavour. But we're going to start with a basic pesto. Now remember, you can actually tweak this as much as you wish. I actually love to use Rockin in this as well. Now Rockin can be quite bitter, so you have to be aware of that when you're balancing out the flavour with the salt. So we're going to start with about half a cup of pre-soaked almonds. Then we are having 4 tablespoons of extra virgin cold pressed olive oil. We have 2 tablespoons of tahini. Again, I love tahini in any of my dips and dressings. It gives a really moreish, satiated feeling, and it's a wonderful binder. Then we're going to have some black pepper, lots of black pepper. A quarter of a teaspoon of Himalayan rock salt to start with. Now, if you feel like you want a little bit more seasoning, then you can always try that at the very, very end. But I like to just err a little bit more on the cautious side. And then we have the lemon juice. So we have 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. I know that half a lemon is essentially 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, and then finally our basil. And this is from the farmer who lives actually just down the road from us. So it already was pre-washed, do not worry. And we're going to use about 1 cup of basil here. So I will just take this off. Literally just got this about half an hour ago, freshly picked this morning. My tree is going to fall over. So I'm going to pick the leaves. Some people like to just, you know, depending on how fresh your stalks are, you can save the stalks and put them into like a stock pot. If you're making your own stock, vegetable stock or chicken stock, these are actually quite thick stalks, so you could do that. Some of the ones that I know from back in Ireland, they're quite thin, so it's not probably worthwhile, but I like to save and use as much of the plant or herb as possible. Okay. So we have about a cup, which is like a really good handful of basil. Now, if you were going to put in rocket, you put in about half a handful of rocket, which is about half a cup of rocket as well. If you feel like, oh, you want a little bit more basil flavour, or you want more rocket, then you have to balance it out. But I'm giving you the basic recipe to start with today. And hit blend, hands over the ears, people, or nip off and put on the kettle. To do, depending, is add a little bit of water just to help it along a bit. There we go. Enough of that. Now, times when you're making this with pine nuts, you still have that lovely texture of little bits and chunks of the pine nuts, which some people like, that kind of grainy texture. So at that stage, that would be where we're at right now with the pesto I've made. If you like to have it really, really a creamy type of pesto, then what I would advise you to do is add a little bit more water and then a little bit more olive oil, and just kind of play with it and balance it out a little bit so that you have an idea of the consistency that you're looking for. You never really want to dilute the flavor at all. So in that respect, I would probably be erring more on the olive oil than I would on the water. Now, let's see how that tastes. Perfect. For me, that's perfect. So what we have here, it's quite a dense pesto, beautiful to use on a salad, in a dressing even. So you can just dilute it down a little bit with water if you wish. Add in some scallions, add in even as a cold pesto salad on pasta, that would be wonderful. Alternatively, this what you can do is keep it in a jar, top it up with a little bit of olive oil, and keep it in the fridge, and this will keep for about a week in the fridge. It is, sorry, the flavour is just amazing. And if you put a little bit of Rockin in there, you might want to balance out the flavour a little bit with your salt at the very end, and just check it out and see how you like it. So enjoy Rockin Roots pesto. Welcome back, and for today's final dish, I'm going to be showing you how to prepare one of my all-time favorite Asian salads, and it is called my Thai Noodle Nirvana salad. And it's really, really simple. Like all of the dishes, they need to be simple, affordable, and things that you would generally have in your kitchen or in your cupboard. So what we're going to be making this with today is, kind of looks like the Irish flag actually, carrots, scallions, spring onions, fresh coriander, really the herb of the Orient, and if you can get your hands on it, which I think is pretty readily available in most places, health food stores, greengrocers or supermarkets, it's what makes the dish sing. If you can't, well then understandable, maybe see if you can get some mint or some fresh basil as well. And the dressing is very simple. It is Bragg's apple cider vinegar, honey, local raw honey, and here we have dried red chili flakes, garlic and salt. That's it. No food processor, no blender, just a spoon and a bowl, and you mix. So what we're going to do is we're going to grate the carrots. The recipe is essentially for 4 grated carrots. If you have organic carrots, brilliant. Just give them a wash and you can leave the skins on. If you haven't got organic carrots, then as I said earlier on, if you can wash them in water and apple cider vinegar solution, and give them a really good scrub, and preferably peel them if you're not going to be buying organic ones, as I said. So you can use a food processor if you wish. But I actually quite like grating. It's probably not the nicest sound to be listening to, but anyway, I'm going to just grate 2 carrots for the sake of time today. Now, what you can do with this salad is you can bulk it out, as I said, to make it a dinner dish. So it could be made more filling if you wanted to use the rice noodles, or the vermicelli, the really thin ones. So if you want to cook those for like 5 minutes in boiling water, take them out, let them cool, add a little bit of olive oil so they don't all clump together. Let them cool down, and then mix them in with the rest of the ingredients that we're going to be having in the salad today. I always love to top my dishes with lots of interesting accoutrements. And what I like to use are either toasted cashew nuts or toasted almonds, as I have here. And then a little gomasio. Now gomasio for those of you who aren't aware of this, gamasio is toasted sesame seeds and toasted Himalayan rock salt. And it's used enormously in Japanese cooking and Asian cooking. And it is a macrobiotic dish, shall we say. And it's meant to balance the yin and the yang in the system. And I always have a little pack with me when I'm traveling or basically anywhere. It's amazing for settling the stomach. A lot of pregnant women have it when they've got morning sickness. They always have a little bit in their little packet and then just munch on it. I always have it when I'm traveling, if I'm feeling travel sickness, especially traveling back and forward to Australia and Europe. And it just brings any dish to life. So I'm going to be showing you how to make that in episode 4 in our fermented foods and living foods section. So we basically have it all grated here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to just put that in a bowl, and I always like to do this so I don't have to lose it. So put the bowl underneath the table, pull the grater back, and it will go straight into the bowl. There you go. I'm sure you know how to do that anyway. And get everything there, and any of the bits that were grated off at the front. Now, my carrots, they were quite big, so that's like quite a good serving for at least 2 people. Now, if you were going to be making this with the 4 carrots, as it is a serving for 4 people. And what you can do then is when you bulk it out with the rice noodles, it even serves more as a dinner. I often like to serve it with some tofu on top. Okay, so we have the carrots, and then we take the washed scallion, always slicing it on the diagonal. Okay, mix that in there. Then we can take the coriander, the fresh coriander, and just roughly chop this. Don't finely chop it because you're going to be putting it in as part of the dressing. You're going to be putting it as part of the salad, and if you chop it and you leave the salad as it lasts for about 2 days in the fridge, it'll just end up getting super soggy if it's in really, really small pieces. So it's better to have it a little bit more roughly chopped. I'm not too fanatical about having loads of little bits of the stem in it, like it's, it's not too bothering for me. So next we're going to go on to the dressing. We just put that aside. We leave that until we're about to do the dressing and dress the salad. So what we're going to do now with the dressing, we're going to pick all of those ingredients. So the apple cider vinegar that we have here, and so that is 50 mils of the apple cider vinegar. Then you have half of that amount in honey. Now, to be honest with you, I haven't made this with brown rice syrup yet, so I don't know if it will be the same amount. That's something I'll have to experiment and maybe include in the PDF for you. So it's half the amount of honey to apple cider vinegar, and this is the raw local Byrne Bay. Oh, I often do that. I get the first letters of words mixed up with each other. Just too intelligent, oh my gosh. And then we have 1 teaspoon of the dried red chili flakes, rocket fuel, and then 1 teaspoon of the Himalayan pink salt, actually ground. And earlier on I was showing you about the garlic. We already smashed it there and let all the natural oils come out and the flavour. Now this is definitely a case where you want to mince it, meaning really crushing it very finely on the side with the side of the knife. Put that out of the way. With the side of the knife, because this salad is not blended further with a food processor or anything, so you definitely don't want to get massive chunks of garlic. So just keep crushing this until you get a really fine paste, and like the really obvious chunks of the garlic are blended down. Yeah. And then just give it one more quick go. Make sure you got everything. And then pop that in with the rest of the dressing. Give it a good stir. If you have a small little jar or even in a cup, whatever you wish, you can mix it up. But I like to get the honey really well combined with everything so that we don't have any lumps. Because you need to have the sweetness, you need to have the saltiness, you need to have the acidity, and then you have the spice, the kick. So it's such a well balanced flavor profile here. So when you put this on as the dressing, you get the different hits of the flavor at different times. So you get the garlic, and then you get the acidity first, and then you get the garlic, and then you get the hit of the chili afterwards. It's a nice little surprise. It's not that much of a surprise, you can see the chili in it, but you know what I mean. Flavor-wise, it's not all coming together at once, which is really important if you want to enjoy your meal and for it to be something that gives you, each mouthful is a surprise, and each mouthful is entertaining and is enjoyable. So what you're going to do now is you're going to just dress the salad. That's it. Scrape off any of the little bits that are left. This is why you want to make sure the garlic is really well crushed. Yeah, and I really much prefer when I'm working with food, especially salads and dressing, I much prefer to work with my hands rather than mixing it all up with a spoon, because you want to coat everything. Okay, gorgeous. And now I'm going to add in lots of coriander. Some people don't like coriander. I feel so sorry for them. I am crazy about it. I didn't think I discovered coriander until I was at least 20, 21. Yeah, actually I was 21, I remember. There we go. Now I am just going to top that with a couple of, just clean this off. My mother would be mortified if she saw me cooking in a mess. Thanks, Ria. Now, so what we'll do now is we will chop a few of these toasted almonds. Whenever I buy a big bunch of almonds or a kilo of almonds, I always toast off at least half a kilo of them and have them there ready. Or actually, they're also really lovely to bake them. The toasting in a pan gives a very different flavor to baking. Okay. Cashews also work really nicely as well. And then you can just sprinkle them around. So this is our Thai noodle Nirvana. Enjoy!